Introduction. Imagine a life free from endless striving. A life where you no longer feel compelled to chase after possessions, accolades, or the elusive promise of happiness somewhere on the horizon. What would it feel like to live without constantly measuring yourself against others? Without clinging to things that, deep down, you know are only temporary? We are conditioned, from an early age, to believe that happiness is something we must pursue and possess. We're told that if we gather enough wealth, find the right partner, or reach certain milestones, we'll finally be content. And yet, with each achievement, we often find ourselves wanting more. This unending cycle is as common as it is exhausting. But what if true happiness wasn't something we had to pursue at all? What if it was within us, quietly waiting for us to notice? In Buddhist philosophy, there is a profound teaching about the roots of human suffering, known as the three poisons: greed, anger, and ignorance. These are not just abstract ideas, they are forces we experience every day. Greed drives us to accumulate, anger blinds us to understanding, and ignorance keeps us trapped in the illusion that our happiness depends on things outside ourselves. These forces create a kind of prison that many of us never realize we're in, leading to a life of frustration, dissatisfaction, and sometimes despair. But there's another path, one that teaches us to let go, to accept life's imperfections, and to find peace in simplicity. This path isn't about giving up everything we have or retreating from society. Instead, it's about shifting our focus from external possessions and achievements to a place of inner fulfillment. Imagine being able to face challenges, losses, and changes with grace, unburdened by the need to control every outcome or possess every desirable thing. This is the essence of detachment, not avoiding life but engaging with it fully, without being ruled by it. In a world that constantly urges us to be more, to have more, the idea of letting go may seem counterintuitive, even radical. But as we'll explore today, releasing our attachment to more is often the key to finding peace, contentment, and even a deeper sense of purpose. It's about learning to live with a sense of freedom, where happiness is no longer held hostage by the latest gadget, promotion, or validation from others. We're going to dive deep into these ideas, using stories, examples, and reflections on how attachment shapes our lives, often without us even realizing it. We'll explore what it truly means to let go and how this simple shift can change the way we experience everything around us. Together, let's step back from the noise and pressures of modern life and consider a different way of being, one that offers a lasting peace and a grounded sense of happiness. As you listen, I encourage you to keep an open heart. Reflect on what it might mean to live with less attachment, not just to material things, but to expectations, outcomes, and even the roles we play. Think about what it would mean to appreciate each moment for what it is, rather than what it could bring you. Let's go on this journey together, where we'll uncover the power of detachment and discover how letting go can lead us to everything we've been searching for all along. This opening paints a vivid picture of the themes and invites viewers to reflect on their own lives and beliefs. It sets the tone for a journey of introspection and exploration, encouraging viewers to question the roots of their own happiness and suffering. The roots of human suffering. Objective. Explain the Buddhist philosophy that human suffering, or dukkha, originates from attachment, specifically greed, anger, and ignorance. Relate these ideas to modern life to make them accessible and meaningful. Understanding greed, anger, and ignorance. In Buddhist philosophy, suffering is not viewed as something imposed from the outside, but rather as an internal experience that we create through attachment. This attachment can take many forms, but at its core, it consists of greed, desire, anger, aversion, and ignorance, delusion. Known as the three poisons, these forces cloud our minds and lead us into cycles of dissatisfaction. Greed, attachment. Greed is the constant desire to possess more, whether it's material things, recognition, or even relationships. In the modern world, We're taught to believe that accumulating more will lead to happiness. However, greed makes us blind to the joy we could find in what we already have, constantly driving us to seek something new and unattainable. Anger, aversion. Anger disrupts our peace and arises when things don't go our way. It's a reaction to unmet expectations or perceived injustice, and it often makes us lash out, harming others and ourselves. Anger turns the mind inward, consuming it with negativity and pushing away the possibility of understanding or compassion. Ignorance, delusion. Ignorance is not simply a lack of knowledge, rather, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of the nature of reality. It's a state of mind that blinds us to the truth about ourselves and our interdependence with others. In modern life, ignorance keeps us trapped in the illusion that happiness is something we attain from the outside world, instead of realizing that it comes from within. Reflection on the modern world, these concepts are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. In our consumer-driven society, we are often led to believe that success is defined by material wealth, social status, and personal achievements. But the more we strive for these, the more we feel unfulfilled, as each new possession or accomplishment quickly loses its charm. This cycle breeds anxiety, dissatisfaction, and stress, leaving us constantly yearning for something more, even though we don't truly need it. Personal insight. The more we rely on external validation through wealth or status, the further we drift from inner peace. Instead of appreciating what we already have, we are always looking at what's missing or comparing ourselves to others. But happiness is not in the things we accumulate, it's a state of mind that grows when we recognize that we are enough as we are. Thought-provoking question. Take a moment to ask yourself, how much of my happiness is tied to things beyond my control? How much is bound up in expectations, possessions, or the approval of others? Example story, John's journey to true happiness. To illustrate these concepts, let's consider the story of John, a successful entrepreneur. John had achieved everything he'd set out to do. He built a flourishing business, bought a beautiful home, and earned the admiration of his peers. However, he still felt an unshakable emptiness. Each accomplishment brought a fleeting sense of joy, but soon after, he was left wanting more. One day, John decided to attend a mindfulness retreat, where he learned about detachment and the Buddhist concept of inner peace. Slowly, he began to shift his priorities, focusing on his family, health, and personal well-being. Over time, he realized that happiness wasn't found in business growth or material success, but in appreciating what he already had. By letting go of the need to control everything and recognizing the sufficiency of the present moment, John found a peace that he had been searching for all along. Lesson from John's story. John's story highlights the power of detachment and the realization that true contentment doesn't come from external achievements but from a shift in perspective. When we release the need to constantly achieve or possess, we open ourselves to a more profound peace and satisfaction with life as it is. Self-liberation through detachment. Objective: explain the importance of detachment, not just from material possessions but also from rigid expectations, the need to control, and ego-driven desires. Buddha's lesson on self-reliance. Buddha taught that the path to liberation is an internal journey. No one else can free us from suffering. This freedom must come from our own efforts to release attachment and cultivate self-awareness. Detachment is not about avoiding life's responsibilities, it's about letting go of the belief that our happiness depends on controlling everything around us. Self-reliance and inner strength. When we let go of our attachments, we find an inner strength that does not depend on circumstances. Buddha's teaching of self-reliance is a reminder that true peace is cultivated from within, through our relationship with ourselves, not through external achievements. Embracing enoughness. Happiness begins when we realize that we are enough. When we stop seeking validation from the outside world, we experience a sense of liberation and freedom. Detachment encourages us to find joy in who we are rather than in what we own or what we achieve. Reflection on the value of detachment. Detachment offers a unique freedom. It allows us to appreciate the world without needing to possess it, to love without the need to control, and to pursue our goals without attaching our self-worth to the outcome. Detachment doesn't mean indifference, it means engaging fully with life without being weighed down by expectations or anxieties. Example story: Emma's path to peace. Let's look at the story of Emma, a high-powered executive who had achieved considerable success in her field. Emma enjoyed the financial rewards, the prestige, and the sense of accomplishment that came with her role. Yet, over time, she began to feel trapped in a life dictated by endless deadlines, stress, and little personal time. Eventually, Emma made the courageous decision to step back from her demanding job. She traded her high-profile position for a simpler life, allowing her to focus on family, hobbies, and self-care. Initially, she feared that stepping down would mean giving up her success, but soon, she found herself experiencing a deeper joy than ever before. Emma discovered that her sense of fulfillment didn't rely on a title or status, but rather on the quality of her relationships and the peace of her everyday life. Lesson from Emma's story: Emma's journey shows that true freedom often requires us to release the very things we think we need to be happy. When we detach from the expectations of society and allow ourselves to follow our own path, we find that happiness lies not in status but in authenticity. Practical advice for practicing detachment. Detachment doesn't require drastic life changes. It's about cultivating a mindset where we're less dependent on outcomes, possessions, and the approval of others. Here are some practical ways to practice detachment. 1. Mindfulness. Practice mindfulness by observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. When you feel the desire to control a situation or get too attached to an outcome, take a deep breath and remind yourself to stay present. Example: when a project at work doesn't go as planned, instead of reacting with frustration, pause and observe the feeling without needing to fix or control it. Journaling. Journaling can help you explore your attachments. Write down the things you feel you need to be happy, and then reflect on whether these things are truly essential. This exercise can reveal where your attachments lie and help you let go of unnecessary desires. Prompt: list 3 things you believe you need to be happy. Now, imagine what life would be like without them. Could you still find contentment? Limiting social media. Social media can fuel feelings of inadequacy by constantly comparing our lives to others. Limiting time on social media reduces this tendency and allows you to focus on your own journey. Example: instead of scrolling for an hour, spend that time with family or doing something that brings you genuine joy. 4. Setting intentions, not expectations. Intentions are focused on the quality of experience rather than the specific outcome. Set intentions for how you want to live, rather than fixed goals. This allows for flexibility and openness to what life brings. Example: instead of expecting a perfect outcome at work, set an intention to approach each task with curiosity and dedication. The power of non-attachment. Non-attachment is not about renouncing life but rather engaging with it from a place of freedom. This freedom allows us to experience everything: relationships, work, possessions, without being weighed down by the need to control or cling to them. Detachment enhances life by allowing us to see it clearly and experience it fully, unfiltered by fear or excessive desire. Embracing impermanence and accepting life's natural flow. Objective: explain the Buddhist concept of impermanence, anicca, and show how accepting life's transient nature can alleviate suffering. Encouraging a peaceful and resilient mindset. Understanding impermanence, anicca. In Buddhism, impermanence, or anicca, is one of the 3 marks of existence, alongside suffering, dukkha, and non-self, anatta. It's the recognition that everything in life is temporary and constantly changing. This includes our emotions, relationships, possessions, and even our identities. The truth of impermanence can be difficult to accept, especially in a world that often promotes the idea of forever. We are surrounded by concepts of lifelong achievements, eternal love, and lasting happiness. But from a Buddhist perspective, clinging to the idea of permanence leads to suffering because it contradicts the very nature of existence. Everything is in flux. Our lives are in a constant state of change. The seasons change. Our bodies age. Relationships evolve. And even our thoughts and emotions are fleeting. By acknowledging impermanence, we free ourselves from the illusion that things will remain the same, and we become more adaptable to life's ups and downs. Impermanence as freedom. Recognizing that everything changes can actually be liberating. When we understand that our struggles and disappointments are temporary, we don't have to hold on to them. Similarly, when we know that joy is fleeting, we savor it more fully in the present moment without clinging to it or fearing its end. Reflection on impermanence in modern life. In today's world, people often cling to the idea of stability and permanence as indicators of success. We desire lasting relationships, lifelong careers, and a sense of security that remains unchanged. But life rarely unfolds according to plan, and trying to impose permanence on a transient world can lead to stress, anxiety, and disappointment. Personal insight. When we resist change, we create tension within ourselves. By trying to keep things the same, we're fighting against the natural flow of life. But by embracing impermanence, we open ourselves to growth and resilience, allowing ourselves to adapt and find peace no matter what happens. Thought-provoking question. What would it feel like to let go of your need for things to stay the same? How might your life change if you embraced every moment, knowing it was temporary? Example story, Sarah's journey of letting go. Consider Sarah, a woman who had everything planned out, a stable job, a beautiful home, and a loving relationship. She believed that she had created a life of security. However, when she lost her job and went through a difficult breakup, Sarah found herself devastated, feeling as though everything she had built was crumbling. Her fear of change intensified her suffering, as she clung to her vision of a perfect life. Eventually, Sarah sought out meditation and began studying Buddhism. Through her practice, she learned about impermanence and started to shift her mindset. Instead of fighting the changes, she began to accept them as natural parts of life. Over time, she found that letting go of her need for control and permanence actually brought her a sense of freedom. She embraced new opportunities, moved to a different city, and discovered a life she hadn't imagined before. Lesson from Sarah's story. Sarah's journey shows us that accepting impermanence allows us to adapt with grace and resilience. By letting go of her fixed plans, Sarah opened herself to new experiences and personal growth. Her story reminds us that life often unfolds in ways we can't predict. And when we embrace this uncertainty, we can find a deeper peace. Practical advice for embracing impermanence. Accepting impermanence doesn't mean we shouldn't have goals or relationships, but rather that we approach them with openness and flexibility. Here are some practical ways to integrate this mindset. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness helps us stay present, fully experiencing each moment as it comes without projecting into the future or holding on to the past. Try focusing on your breath or observing your surroundings with curiosity to ground yourself in the present. Reflect on nature's cycles. Nature is a powerful teacher of impermanence. Observe the changing seasons, the blooming and withering of flowers, or the daily rise and fall of the sun. These natural cycles remind us that change is constant and beautiful. Embrace beginner's mind. In Buddhism, a beginner's mind means approaching life with curiosity and openness, as if experiencing everything for the first time. This practice allows us to see each moment as new, freeing us from expectations and judgments. Release control over outcomes. Instead of fixating on specific results, focus on the quality of your actions. When we let go of the need to control outcomes, we free ourselves from disappointment and create room for unexpected growth. The peace of impermanence. When we accept impermanence, We find a peace that isn't shaken by life's inevitable changes. This acceptance allows us to live with a greater appreciation for each moment and a resilience that carries us through challenges. Impermanence isn't a cause for despair, it's a reminder to live fully, to love deeply, and to let go gracefully. Practicing simplicity and cultivating gratitude. Objective: show how Buddhist principles of simplicity and gratitude lead to a fulfilling life by reducing desires and fostering appreciation for the present moment. The wisdom of simplicity in Buddhism. In Buddhist philosophy, simplicity is a path to inner freedom. By reducing our desires and focusing on what we truly need, we free ourselves from the burden of excess. Simplicity doesn't mean deprivation, it means clearing away distractions so we can focus on what's meaningful. The power of less. When we have fewer material possessions and fewer attachments, we have more space to cultivate inner qualities like kindness, compassion, and wisdom. Simplicity allows us to direct our energy towards what really matters, rather than spreading ourselves thin over countless possessions and responsibilities. Contentment over consumption. True contentment arises not from acquiring more, but from appreciating what we have. Simplicity teaches us that joy isn't found in the abundance of things, but in the richness of our experience. When we are satisfied with less, we feel free from the constant urge to acquire. Reflection on simplicity in modern life. In a society that often equates success with accumulation, simplicity can seem countercultural. We're bombarded with messages telling us that happiness lies in having more money, more possessions, more recognition. But this endless pursuit often leads to stress, debt, and a sense of emptiness. Personal insight. Simplicity has shown me that happiness isn't something we buy or collect, it's something we experience when we strip away what isn't essential. The less we cling to, the lighter we feel, and the more we can appreciate the beauty of the present. Thought-provoking question. What would your life look like if you let go of everything that isn't essential? How might it feel to focus on experiences, relationships, and inner peace instead of possessions? Example story: Maria's journey to a simple life. Maria was once heavily invested in her career and the material rewards it brought. She had a large home, luxury cars, and all the latest gadgets. However, her success came at a cost. She felt constantly overwhelmed and stressed, as though she was chasing a happiness that kept eluding her. One day, Maria decided to simplify her life. She downsized her home, gave away possessions she didn't need, and focused on spending time with her family. She began to practice gratitude, appreciating the small joys of everyday life. The more she simplified, the more fulfilled she felt. Instead of feeling burdened, she experienced a profound sense of freedom and clarity. Lesson from Maria's story. Maria's story shows that simplicity leads to a deeper sense of peace and joy. By letting go of the unnecessary, she found happiness in the present and created more time for meaningful connections. Her journey is a reminder that true wealth isn't measured by possessions but by the richness of our experiences and relationships. Cultivating gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful practice in Buddhism. When we are grateful, we shift our focus from what's lacking to what's abundant in our lives. This simple shift can transform our perspective and bring us closer to a sense of peace. Gratitude journaling. Each day, write down 3 things you're grateful for. This practice can help you focus on the positive aspects of life and develop a habit of appreciation. Mindful appreciation. Take a moment each day to fully appreciate something you usually take for granted, like a warm meal or a conversation with a friend. Let yourself feel gratitude for these small moments. Sharing gratitude. Express your gratitude to others, whether through words, gestures, or acts of kindness. When we show appreciation, we strengthen our connections and spread joy to those around us. Embrace minimalism. Minimalism isn't about having nothing, it's about valuing what you have. By simplifying your possessions and focusing on what's essential, you create space for gratitude and clarity. The fulfillment of simplicity and gratitude. When we practice simplicity and gratitude, we experience life with greater depth and clarity. We find joy not in what we possess, but in our capacity to appreciate. These practices remind us that we already have everything we need to be content. Simplicity and gratitude are keys to a life of peace, connection, and fulfillment. Cultivating compassion and letting go of judgment. Objective: emphasize the importance of compassion in Buddhism and discuss how letting go of judgment toward ourselves and others can lead to deeper peace and understanding. Understanding compassion, karuna, in Buddhism. Compassion, known as karuna in Buddhism, is more than a feeling of sympathy or kindness. It's a deep, active desire to relieve the suffering of others. It arises from a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all beings, the recognition that just as we experience joy and pain, so do others. In Buddhism, compassion is viewed as an essential quality to be cultivated because it helps dissolve the boundaries of the self, leading to a life of kindness and meaningful relationships. Compassion as a foundation of peace. When we cultivate compassion, we move beyond our ego and self-interest. Compassion softens the heart, reducing feelings of anger, resentment, and isolation. It helps us see others not as strangers or competitors but as fellow beings who, like us, seek happiness and freedom from suffering. Self-compassion and self-acceptance. Compassion isn't just about others, it must also be directed toward ourselves. Self-compassion encourages us to be gentle with our own imperfections, to accept our humanity, and to let go of harsh self-judgment. By being kind to ourselves, we become more capable of extending kindness to others. Letting go of judgment in modern life. In our society, we are often quick to judge ourselves and others, whether based on appearances, actions, or opinions. These judgments create separation, leading to misunderstandings and strained relationships. However, Buddhist teachings encourage us to recognize that judgment is often based on limited understanding. When we release judgment, we create space for compassion and connection. Judgment as a barrier to compassion. Judging others or ourselves places a barrier between us and the ability to genuinely connect. When we judge, we label people as good or bad, right or wrong, rather than seeing them as complex individuals with their own unique experiences. This limits our capacity for empathy and understanding. Personal insight. When I stopped judging myself harshly, I found it easier to accept my flaws and work on them without shame. Similarly, when I let go of judgment toward others, I felt a deeper connection and appreciation for them as individuals. Thought-provoking question. How much of your happiness depends on seeing others in a certain way? What would change if you let go of your judgments and accepted others as they are? Example story: Mark's transformation through compassion. Consider Mark, a successful manager known for his no-nonsense approach. Mark was driven, but his judgmental attitude often alienated his colleagues. He believed that he was simply holding others to high standards. But in reality, he was quick to judge and slow to understand. One day, Mark attended a workshop on mindfulness and compassion, where he was encouraged to examine his judgments. Through exercises and reflection, he realized that his judgments often stemmed from his own insecurities and fears. By practicing self-compassion, he began to accept his imperfections and, in turn, found it easier to empathize with others. Over time, Mark's relationships transformed. His colleagues felt valued, and he noticed that his own stress levels decreased. Mark learned that compassion, both for himself and others, created an environment of trust and understanding. Lesson from Mark's story. Mark's journey highlights the power of compassion to heal relationships and improve our own well-being. By letting go of judgment, he opened himself to deeper, more meaningful connections. Compassion fosters not only kindness toward others but also inner peace, as it frees us from the negativity that judgment creates. Practical advice for cultivating compassion and releasing judgment. Cultivating compassion and letting go of judgment require mindfulness and self-reflection. Here are some ways to practice. Compassion meditation, metta bhavana. Metta bhavana, or loving-kindness meditation, is a Buddhist practice where we cultivate compassion by wishing well for ourselves and others. Begin by sending kindness to yourself. Then extend it to loved ones, acquaintances, and even those you find difficult. This practice opens the heart and builds empathy. Mindful listening. When engaging in conversations, practice listening without forming judgments or thinking about how you'll respond. Instead, focus fully on the other person's words and emotions. This mindful listening can deepen understanding and reduce the urge to judge. Self-reflection at the end of each day. Reflect on any judgments you may have formed about yourself or others. Ask yourself why these judgments arose and whether they were based on limited information. This reflection helps you become more aware of your judgments and opens the door to compassion. Replace judgment with curiosity. When you catch yourself judging someone, pause and try to replace judgment with curiosity. Ask yourself why this person might act or think the way they do. This shift from judgment to curiosity promotes empathy and broadens our understanding. The power of compassion and non-judgment. When we cultivate compassion and let go of judgment, we experience a life that is more peaceful, connected, and understanding. Compassion isn't about pity or feeling superior, it's about recognizing our shared humanity. As we let go of judgment, we free ourselves from the negativity that separates us, allowing us to live with kindness and authenticity. Mindfulness and the path to inner peace. Objective: explain the importance of mindfulness in Buddhism and explore how cultivating awareness leads to inner peace and freedom from unnecessary suffering. Understanding mindfulness, sati, in Buddhism. Mindfulness, or sati in Buddhism, is the practice of being fully aware of the present moment, observing thoughts, emotions, and sensations without judgment. Mindfulness is the foundation of all Buddhist practices, as it helps us become aware of our habitual patterns and behaviors, allowing us to respond to life with clarity and intention rather than reacting impulsively. Mindfulness as a path to freedom. Mindfulness creates a space between stimulus and response, allowing us to choose our actions wisely rather than reacting based on old habits. It frees us from the automatic thoughts that often lead to anxiety, anger, or dissatisfaction. Being present without attachment. Mindfulness encourages us to engage fully with life without becoming attached to outcomes. This means we experience each moment as it is, without clinging to pleasure or resisting discomfort. By observing life with an open heart and a clear mind, we find peace within ourselves. Reflection on mindfulness in modern life. In our fast-paced world, many people experience stress and anxiety because they are either dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Mindfulness teaches us to anchor ourselves in the present, reducing the mental noise that often causes suffering. Personal insight. When I practice mindfulness, I realize how often my mind is caught up in things that aren't happening right now. By returning to the present moment, I feel more at ease and better able to handle whatever life brings. Thought-provoking question. How much of your time do you spend worrying about things that aren't happening right now? What might change if you focused on the present moment? Example story: Lisa's journey to peace through mindfulness. Lisa was a high-achieving professional who struggled with stress and anxiety. Her mind was always racing, thinking about the next project, meeting, or deadline. She found it difficult to relax and often felt overwhelmed. A friend suggested that she try mindfulness meditation, and Lisa agreed. Though skeptically, as she practiced mindfulness, she learned to observe her thoughts without getting caught up in them. She discovered that much of her stress was self-created, arising from her thoughts about the future. With time, Lisa became more grounded. She still worked hard, but she approached her tasks with a calm focus. Instead of being overwhelmed, she felt more in control and peaceful. Lisa's journey illustrates that mindfulness doesn't change what happens in our lives, it changes how we experience it. Lesson from Lisa's story: Lisa's experience shows that mindfulness allows us to step back from our thoughts and see them as temporary. When we are mindful, we are less likely to be overwhelmed by stress, and we gain the ability to respond to life with clarity and presence. Practical advice for practicing mindfulness. Mindfulness can be practiced in many ways, from formal meditation to everyday activities. Here are some suggestions. Mindful breathing. Take a few moments each day to focus on your breath. Observe the sensation of the breath as it enters and leaves your body. This simple practice helps anchor you in the present moment and calms the mind. Body scan meditation. A body scan is a mindfulness exercise where you focus on each part of your body, noticing any sensations without judgment. This practice helps you connect with your physical experience and cultivate awareness of your body. Mindful walking. When you walk, practice paying attention to each step. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Observe your surroundings, and let go of any thoughts about the past or future. Walking mindfully helps you integrate mindfulness into daily life. Labeling thoughts and emotions. When a strong thought or emotion arises, mentally label it. For example, if you feel anxious, label it anxiety without judging it. This practice helps you observe your inner experience without becoming consumed by it. The freedom of mindfulness. Mindfulness offers us a path to inner peace by helping us live fully in each moment. When we are mindful, we become less attached to fleeting thoughts and emotions, finding a deeper sense of stability within ourselves. Mindfulness teaches us that peace isn't the absence of challenges, but the ability to meet them with awareness and calm. As we reflect on the journey through Buddhist teachings, we uncover profound and timeless wisdom that guides us to live a life of peace, compassion, and awareness. The concepts we've explored, from understanding the roots of suffering, practicing detachment, embracing impermanence, and cultivating simplicity and gratitude, to nurturing compassion and developing mindfulness, all point us towards a path where happiness and fulfillment arise naturally from within, not from external circumstances. The Buddha's teachings invite us to consider suffering not as an unavoidable part of life, but as a condition we can understand and transform. Suffering, or dukkha, arises not from our circumstances but from our attachments, judgments, and expectations. Through practicing detachment, we learn that freedom comes not from possessing more, but from letting go of what holds us back. We begin to see that by releasing our grip on things, people, and outcomes, we create space for inner peace. This peace is something no external gain or achievement can provide because it arises from the mind's ability to be present, resilient, and content. The concept of impermanence, or anicca, teaches us to embrace change rather than resist it. Life is always shifting, and everything we experience is in constant flux. When we recognize this reality, we start to appreciate each moment more deeply, knowing it will not last. By embracing impermanence, we can love without clinging, work without anxiety, and live without fear. We understand that beauty exists precisely because of change, and every experience, joyful or painful, is a chance to grow. Practicing simplicity and gratitude brings us closer to true contentment. In a world that constantly urges us to acquire and consume, simplicity reminds us that happiness does not depend on accumulation. Gratitude, on the other hand, shifts our focus from what we lack to what we already have. Together, simplicity and gratitude help us cultivate a deep appreciation for life as it is. When we are grateful for the present moment, we see abundance even in simplicity. We realize that everything we need to be content is already within reach. Compassion, or karuna, is another central principle in Buddhism that opens our hearts to others. True compassion transcends mere sympathy. It is a genuine wish to alleviate suffering, whether it's our own or that of others. When we cultivate compassion, We dissolve the walls of separation and connect more deeply with those around us. Compassion also teaches us self-acceptance, helping us forgive our own mistakes and embrace our imperfections. As we become gentler with ourselves, we extend the same kindness to others, creating a ripple effect of empathy, warmth, and understanding. Mindfulness, or sati, lies at the heart of Buddhist practice. It allows us to live each moment fully, observing our thoughts, emotions, and sensations without judgment. Mindfulness helps us recognize that we are not our thoughts, rather, we are the awareness observing them. With this realization, we gain freedom from habitual reactions, fears, and anxieties. We find ourselves able to respond to life's challenges with clarity and calm, rather than reacting out of habit. In this way, mindfulness opens a doorway to lasting peace. These teachings guide us toward a transformation that starts from within. By aligning our lives with these principles, we not only experience personal growth but also contribute positively to the world around us. Imagine the impact if each of us cultivated compassion, practiced mindfulness, and approached life with a sense of gratitude. Our relationships would deepen, our communities would be more connected, and our world would be more peaceful. This is the essence of Buddhist philosophy, a path that benefits both ourselves and others, bringing harmony into our hearts and spreading it outward. As we continue to apply these insights in our daily lives, we find that true freedom doesn't come from trying to change our circumstances but from changing our perspective. Lasting happiness isn't something we chase, it's something we nurture through presence, compassion, and wisdom. This happiness is steady, unaffected by the highs and lows of life, because it is rooted in an understanding of our inner nature. Through these practices, we learn that the world around us reflects the world within. When our mind is calm, the world appears less chaotic. When our heart is open, we find kindness everywhere. By letting go of the desire to control everything and allowing life to unfold naturally, we discover a harmony that was always within us. It's a journey that continually reminds us of the beauty of being alive, not for what we possess, but for the richness of each experience, each connection, and each breath. As we conclude this journey through Buddhist philosophy, remember that these teachings are not simply ideas to contemplate but practices to embody. Each moment offers us a chance to live with mindfulness, to approach life with compassion, and to embrace both joy and sorrow with equanimity. Buddhism encourages us to walk this path at our own pace, gently and steadily, knowing that every step brings us closer to a life of genuine fulfillment. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found value in these teachings, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. Your support encourages us to create more meaningful content that can inspire and uplift. We look forward to continuing this journey with you, and we're grateful to have you as part of our community.